it's certainly critical that New Zealand is able to discuss what the treaty means in 2023. And it's not about whether we value the treaty. Of course we do. The question is, do we agree with the interpretation that's been slapped on it in the last 30 years? I think a lot of people have got confused. They think that if you don't agree with the way that the courts and certain interest groups have interpreted the treaty since 1987, you don't agree with the treaty. Actually, we're pro-treaty. We just don't like the divisive way it's been interpreted lately.
Well, part of your action could be considered to be contributing to that divisiveness, I guess.
Well, I don't really see how promoting universal human rights and inclusion is divisive. The fact that we've been continually accused of divisiveness, but when challenged, none of the accusers can give us any examples of why they think we're being divisive. I think that probably tells you all you need to know.
So on that, right, let's think about that. So is there anything that you can think of that he has specifically said that's created that divisiveness? Now, I would say yes, because every time he talks like this, what he's doing is amplifying a sector of society to be racist. Like he's giving them permission to be racist. And it's a bit like we were talking the other day about Fox News. Fox News may not tell their hosts what to say, but they hire hosts that they know are going to say things and see things in a certain way. So there may or may not be anything specific. Like if you looked up racist things Donald Trump has said, you get a big long list. He's easy. If you look up race baiting by David Seymour or racist things by David Seymour, it's harder to nail down a specific thing that comes out of his mouth, like a specific thing that comes out of his mouth. But I would suggest that what he has done is he's made it more acceptable to hold on to some pretty abhorrent views. Like I had an interaction today. I put up a clip from last night, and I've had a huge number of people agreeing with David Seymour and talking about Bloody Marys. So they're using David Seymour as a gateway to share their racist thoughts. Is it David Seymour saying those exact words? No. Is it David Seymour making it okay for those views to come out of the shadow? I would say yes. And I wanted to, before you jump in, Chewie, I wanted to read this out. This is from the press. And this is Christopher Hipkins speaking. Christopher Hipkins says this. For example, David Seymour has interpreted tino rangatiratanga only as a right to authority over property, not self-determination, in a way that scholars, the courts, and most importantly, Māori, have defined it for over a century. So when he says it needs to be reinterpreted, the way he's interpreting it seems to be contrary to the way that most, including the courts, including scholars, including Māori, have defined it. His new proposed Treaty Act makes no mention of Māori, or the Crown, or hapu, or iwi. In fact, it only refers to all New Zealanders as if history never happened. In an interview with broadcaster Julian Wilcox, Luxon said ACT's referendum is divisive and National would not support it. However, he would be open to hearing different views about the treaty principles. In a 2022 interview, Luxon said Māori ceded sovereignty when the treaty was signed, a controversial view not supported by the Waitangi Tribunal. Now, I played that clip last night, or I showed that clip about that documentary about Germany in 1940. One of the things, I've got some German friends who went up through their education system, and they all know the history of Germany through the 30s and 40s like it happened yesterday, because they have a system where they teach it again and again and again to make sure it's never forgotten. What we're seeing in America at the moment is we're seeing, conservative Americans and they, critical race theory, which is an academic term for a level of education that's typically university, about looking at the impact of race and how it's impacted the world today, critically based on the history. There are people who are trying to write that out of education textbooks. There are people who are trying to write out slavery from education textbooks. There are people in America who are getting books banned, and some of the books they're getting banned, and look, we won't even go into the gender issues because that may not be the historical aspect, but the books they're getting banned are books that highlight how badly slaves were treated. And when I read that, the quote from Christopher Hipkins, thinking, if this is what David Seymour wants, an all New Zealanders thing, it feels like we talked last night about a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. This is one step to getting rid of textbooks and not wanting to talk about what happened in the early 1800s in New Zealand. And I find that quite scary. So he might be saying, just point out where we've done these things. Well, it feels much bigger than that. Like these things to do with race are the foundation is being laid by ACT, and people are choosing to springboard off it. And once we get to step 10 of 1,000 miles and step 100 of 1,000 miles and step 1,000 of 1,000 miles, where will we be with these foundations that ACT is setting, and the questions they're asking now, Chewie?
Yeah, look, I think what David does there, and he does it multiple times. It's like, I've been accused of racism. Show me where I've been racist. It's a classic fucking online debate tactic. I think they call it sea lioning. Yeah. As you ask for unprovable things, because I think David knows exactly what he's doing. He knows the words that he's using. He knows the line that he's walking up to and not crossing, knowing that what he's saying has enough message cut through to the people he's actually talking to, that they will carry it the rest of the way. Yes, David, I don't believe you've said anything explicitly racist. I just think you're tying together a lot of ideas that become racist and speak to racists. I think it's fantastic that you are so even-handed that you can say nice things like, everybody's got to be equal. Everybody's got to be treated equally. Well, that's fantastic. So an old lady falls over on the street. I don't have to pick them up, because I wouldn't pick up a 20-year-old that fell in the street.
Yeah.
There should be no accommodation for disability or gender or race. Everything's equal. And that's lovely, isn't it? An 8-year-old can do the same 40-hour week that I can do. Equality. Yeah. It's not equality, David. We didn't have the same starting points. We didn't even have the same track to run. It is not equal. It never has been.
I think what you've just said is that exact point that we've been making here. And we've said this to David Seymour's face. David, the foundation of race baiting and racism is not because you say you want equality for all when it comes to race. It's because you only say you want equality for all when it comes to race. Because as Chewie just said, you don't want equality when it comes to age. You don't want equality when it comes to gender. You don't want equality when it comes to disability. None of those other areas you want to flatten the field for, because, if you're 65 and you're getting the pension, that's discrimination based on age. It just is, right? But it's discrimination we accept, and you don't want to change that. You only want to change issues to do with race, and that's why it's race baiting. Like, let's go out there and see you talking about we need to cancel and make it all even for the 40-year-olds and the 65-year-olds when it comes to the pension. You know what? The pensioners would be up in arms against you. Because you're making it that you want to make it a level playing field because of race, people of that race are up in arms against you. That's how it works. If you wanted to make it, no more disabled car parks, no more special help in schools for blind students. That community will be up against if you were trying to equal all those discriminations out. But they're not, because the only one you're trying to level out is race. And that's why it's race baiting. And that's why it's racially divisive. And that's what you're sowing.